This month obviously is API Heritage Month, so a very special time for people in the United States to recognize the heritage of Asian and Pacific Islander Americans. Also, yesterday was the 140th anniversary of the signing of the Chinese Exclusion Act, which has had such an incredible effect on so many people and so many immigrants to the United States. But we're making a little bit of history today. Yesterday was this is the first time collaboration between the Wing Luk Museum in Seattle, hello, Museum of Chinese in America in New York City, the Chinese American Museum in Chicago, the Chinese American Museum in DC, the San Diego Chinese Historical Museum, where we are right now, and the Chinese American Heritage Foundation out in Boston, who all agreed to come together and to support Tiffany Chin in her first webinar about her life. So it's very exciting, and I know that this is just the first step that we'll take together in telling the story of the Chinese American experience as we educate, remember, and celebrate our heritage. So today we celebrate our heritage by talking to the figure skating star and now figure skating coach, Tiffany Chin. Tiffany was born in Oakland, California in 1981. At a very young age. She won the 1981 World Junior Championship. She's a two-time bronze medalist in the World Championship. And then in 1984, she competed at the Sarajevo Winter Olympics. At just the age of 16, she finished fourth. And you think about how many people are in figure skating, and finishing fourth in the world is just an extraordinary feat. Now, she won the 1985 U.S. Championship title, the first time by a non-white athlete at the senior level. And she was just this year in January inducted into the Figure Skating Hall of Fame in January this year. So congratulations on that. It is just an honor to have you here. We want to talk about all your wonderful skating adventures around the world, but I want to go back to the very beginning first and talk about about your parents and how they came to America and how you came to be born in Oakland.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for inviting me, and Lily. My mother is from mainland China, and she was a student from SC and she came as a foreign student to SC to study librarian science. And my father was coming to the US, actually was born here, and going to Berkeley to study his PhD. So they met in the graduate programs.
Okay, and you were born in Oakland. Tell me a little bit about how you grew up. Where were there a lot of, I think there are a lot of Chinese people in Oakland.
Yes, there are a lot of Chinese people in Oakland. I didn't spend that much time there in Oakland. Just like the first couple of years. And then we relocated down to San Diego, which I spent really most of my skating career.
Okay, and so how did you get started in skating? Was it just something that you tried out and grew to love?
Well, actually, my parents had bought a $1 pair of skates at a garage sale. So who would have thought, right? From that $1, this career would start. But I took it to a local rink, tried it out. I remember really enjoying that feel against my skin, just the wind against my face. I love the sensation across the ice and gliding. I just had a blast. And from there, begged my second grade a babysitter to take me skating, and it just kind of progressed. I'm very lucky to have parents to support me in this.
Yeah, you're talking about your parents. I mean, skating is a very challenging sport. I believe finding time for the ice. Sometimes people have to wake up at 5 a.m. or did you have to do that?
Oh yes, those grueling hours. I was no stranger to that. And yes, I mean, I didn't quite get up at 5. Surprisingly, I was one of those people who was just always kind of sleeping. My mom would drive me to the rink. I was asleep in the car. As you know, I grew up in San Diego and represented San Diego until I was a senior lady. So I had my very, very beginning session to the advanced level, the senior level. here in San Diego. And I later came to find my coach. Well, my mother found my coach, Frank Carroll, who I spent many years with, who was located in Los Angeles. So of course that's a two and a half hour drive. So it's really my mom who did those 5 a.m.s. I basically got up at 6. A lot easier for me. But yes, no stranger to long hours, both before school, after school. It seemed like I was skating all the time. Back then, there was a discipline called figures, hence figure skating, in which we did compulsory figure eights. And that took up about a good 50% of my skating hours, believe it or not. They now no longer have that, but it did teach us a good sense of edging and control.
And so when did you know that you were good? I mean, was there a point where you said, yeah, this is something that I can really be good at?
You know, I didn't really have that big aha moment. To me, I loved it. Like I said, I begged my second grade babysitter to take me skating, of course, with the approval of my parents. I don't think that's kind of out there that much, but I do remember that I really loved it a lot. And for me, it was just a great joy. I think it was maybe other people saying things to my mom when I was young. Hey, she's talented. And her kind of making that observation and maybe taking some of the advice of, you should get her some lessons, you should think of progressing into some competitions. It was really, for me though, I just loved it. And I cannot remember one distinct time where it was like, oh, I could be great, because I just loved it. And that was the prevailing feeling for me most of my career.
That's exciting. And then when you entered your first competition, or maybe won your first competition, what was that feeling like?
Well, gosh, exciting. I remember being excited about the performance, and it would go so quickly. And I remember thinking, oh, I want to do that again. So I think, like many young girls, you tend to look forward to the next competition, and hence you start your skating career.
So as you were growing up, were there many other Asians in the sport or other Chinese people in the sport?
Not to my recollection. I do not recall seeing many Asian faces, actually, if any, to tell you quite honestly. There weren't many. That didn't bother me though. I was always, had lots of friends. I grew up in San Diego, started in San Diego. San Diegans are very friendly. So yeah, but I don't remember seeing many Asians.
And I think that's a lot of the experience with everybody, or normal people growing up in the United States, and you might land yourself in suburban areas and schools that there just aren't as many Asian folks around. But as you progressed in your sport, at what age? It was a very young age when you started traveling to larger competitions and competing internationally, right?
Yes. I was 12 years old when I was selected to represent the United States at the 81 Junior World Championships. I was really excited. It's a big competition. It still is a big competition. And I was so thrilled to participate and to have won it.
And where did that take place, the world?
It took place in Ontario, Canada.
Okay. And what an exciting feeling. You were 12 years old and all these people around the world are coming to compete in a place, and then you end up on top.
It was not as surprising as that, actually. At that time, it was US had enjoyed a long history of always winning that particular competition. So, and this was definitely made known to me. So I felt the pressure, and I was really happy and relieved that I did not disappoint.
Excellent. Well, there's a lot of talk, especially of parents, especially mothers. And I think it was because of a New York Times article talking about a tiger mom, or that mothers are um, like to push and push. Was that the case for you?
Oh, well, definitely. I mean, I think most Asians, and I can't say for everyone, but I would say a lot of Asians do have that expectation that they need to work hard and excel. And again, no exception to that. And I'm very grateful to both my parents for that, especially my mother, who was really by my side the entire way. And I learned, if I have any strength of character and push and drive and fortitude, I would definitely credit that to her and her patience in instilling that in me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm the same way too. Not quite as successful results for my mother, but certainly appreciate the hard work and the willingness to push us to succeed. Now, as you progress in your skating career, when does competing, I mean, is it always, and I guess if you do well in juniors, there are expectations as well. You could probably compete in the as an adult or the senior level as well.
Yes, of course.
Are you basically put on a track for World Championship and Olympics?
Yes, and gratefully so, because I could never have steered through all those obstacles and gotten to the places I needed to get to do the higher level competitions without the help of coaches, advisors, parents, an association, who really comes in, steps forward, and helps the athletes become recognized.
My daughter's an athlete as well, and the thing is that the people don't necessarily see, and when they look at athletes, is that you're giving up. You may not know it, but you're giving up a certain part of your life, sort of like regular high school kids or regular school kids. Did you ever feel like you were missing out on the things that your neighborhood friends were doing or anything like that?
When I was, so I'll kind of take you through that question chronologically. When I was young, not really. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. And yes, I saw that maybe there were other kids doing other things, playing mostly, I think. And while I had to go and practice, but that didn't really bother me because I really enjoyed to skate. I enjoyed the outcomes of it, the sense of achievement. And I don't know, I mean, kids, they're persevering. I found time to play. I did. I mean, anywhere and everywhere. So not when I was really young. Now, as I got older, of course, the sacrifices became more apparent to me. Everything from trying to get the schoolwork in to now I'm missing dances and other more monumental milestones that I think I would have really enjoyed. But in all honesty, Chris, I wouldn't have traded it for the world. And I've thought about this long and hard because now I'm a mother. And I've had so many people tell me or mention, like, oh, is it so tough? And, burnout and this and that. And, I had my trials and tribulations. But one of the things I would love for people to know that it's so important, this sense of achievement, whether it's the Olympics or whether it's a child learning how to spell a word and achieving that in a spelling bee, or achieving that in front of their parents, being able to spell it for the first time without looking at the book. Whatever that is, that sense of aha in their head, hey, I can do this, is wonderful. And I know you had also mentioned, where was that aha moment? It's funny because it wasn't that pronounced. It wasn't that blatant, but there were little steps like this, those little places where you achieve and you start striving again and reaching up a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more. So whether a young person turns around and sees, oh, I want to go to the Olympics, or whether they want to just simply, you know what, I'm going to try just this, just, a little bit more in the next 6 months. It doesn't matter why you reach, as long as you reach to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so wonderful. I mean, just and that positive reinforcement of accomplishing something, and obviously you accomplished you were accomplishing quite a bit and succeeding quite a bit, and I'm sure that sort of fed your interest in moving forward and competing. And then talk about the road to the Olympics. You're on, the people are expecting you to do that. You're expecting to go to the Olympics. And we watch, obviously, the trials on television, things like that. Tell me about the excitement and the stress level and the I guess the aspirations that you had when you were just 14 years old.
I hit the world, it depends. I hit junior worlds when I was 13. And then I did my first world championships at the senior level at 15, and then the Olympics at 16. So, again, lucky to have a whole team of people behind me. My coach, who dedicated so many tireless hours helping me get it through my head, certain things that I need to do either with my body and with my mind and the emotional development, because something like the Olympics or these world championships, it's just a fleeting moment, and years and yet years, at least for figure skating, years and years and years and years, intense years go into those 4 minutes. So we spend a lot of time let me rephrase that. Many people spend a lot of time to ensure it is not just left to chance. And even so far as to take care of the emotional side too, so I really credit the people that I was working with. Again, I can't say enough about, I feel the association and my coach and coaches that have helped me, my parents who've held my hand and said, especially my mom. I mean, one of the things a lot of people don't know, maybe some young athletes might have had their own experiences, right? My mom would always say to me as I would go out into these competitions right before I competed, I don't care how you do. I love you no matter what. And that, Chris, really grounded me, because you're trying to tell yourself, or at least, and now I'm talking about when I'm going into that mode and as a young person, I'm trying to tell myself that, you know what, this world championships doesn't mean everything. Biting my lip and digging my nails into my hand, when I know good and well it does. It means everything to me. It's what I've been working really, really hard on. But having someone you love say that to you really does allow you to sigh and take a breath. And you need to breathe through these moments that are difficult to get through.
Absolutely. I mean, I get the support system. In the last Olympics became a little bit of a controversy, or people saw that maybe there wasn't enough support for some skaters, but we can talk about that a little bit later. And so Sarajevo, how exciting is it to be there in the Olympics? Only happens every 4 years. And I'm sure who did you enjoy watching on television? You must have watched figure skating on television with the Olympics. Who were some of your favorite figure skaters?
Well, of course, I would have to say, like when I was a child, looking up, and it inspired me to ice skate, would be Dorothy Hamill. She was the Olympic champion as I was coming up and practicing. And so we would, as a group of little kids, turn around and play ice skating. How does one play ice skating? Well, we would run around in our shoes in a set area. There would even be some selected judges, and we would perform our routines, and the selected judges would vote on who they thought would win. It was really cute because, as little kids are, there, we would decide, oh, I'm so and so. Well, there were many, 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 many Dorothy Hamels,
Yeah.
and many, 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 many Peggy Flemings.
Yeah.
It was really quite funny.
Absolutely. And so, one of the things that is interesting to me, like I traveled internationally a little bit, and people look at you and are maybe not quite sure you're Asian. They can see that, but then you're from the United States. Is that something that was surprising to people, that an Asian person or a Chinese person could represent the United States?
Well, I did have one incident when I was little, but I didn't get that so much as an adult as much as I did when I was little. And it was an innocent kind of form. We were just, I must be the age of like 8 or 9. So I'm not serious. I'm just still playing ice skating those days. And a little girl, very innocently, no harm, said, "Oh, you're so good, but too bad, you're not American." And I was just taken aback. And so I asked her to define this, and it's like, because you're not, the way Americans look. So that kind of, I immediately thought, well, I'll have to change that. And of course, not really at all taking that very seriously, just little kids being indignant. But that was like my one kind of brush when I was young, and very innocently, and the other person also being very innocent, but coming across, yes, bias.
Yeah. And so here you are, you're going to the Olympics in Sarajevo, and you're competing among the best. That you have been competing among the best, but on this global stage where millions of people around the world are watching. What is that feeling like to step out on the ice and know that so many eyes are on you?
By this time, the association, my coach, and my support team, their work on me really helped, because I really blocked it out. I mean, I spent a lot of time really just focusing on what I was supposed to do, envisioning my program, and not getting distracted. I mean, in some extent, I didn't enjoy it probably as much as I could have, but for me, I chose, and I knew I was choosing to focus more on a good performance, and then maybe play afterward, then enjoy all of it while it's going. I didn't want to have any regrets, and I don't regret that decision.
You finished in 4th place.
Yes.
How do you reflect on that, on the finish, on that time? And it's an incredible achievement, but not a medal, unfortunately. I mean, I don't want to point that out, but I mean, it's
absolutely. I was thinking that. And going in, I was not the favorite, and I think there was a team of 3 ladies in the ladies event, and I was the newest member by far, and the most unknown. So there was really no hope for me going in for a medal. It was just kind of do the best you can kind of thing. And to have come so close was really kind of a shock. Now, in afterthought, yes, I'm like, oh man. Well, I did get second in the long program, and I was 3rd in the free skate, but there was at the time the compulsory figures in which I was 12th, so that changed my mark and held me down.
Mm-hmm. And when you look back at the Olympics, and obviously your performance in skating was one thing, but what's something that you remember vividly? And you were talking about play afterwards. What's something that you took away from the Olympics and being part of the Olympics that sticks in your memory?
Well, one of my favorite moments and overwhelming moments was walking and participating in the opening ceremonies. I did not realize how overwhelmed I would be. I was preparing to go into the arena, and this is, we're miles away, maybe 2 miles or maybe a mile, I don't know, a long distance away. I could see the arena, or maybe what was supposed to be the stadium, very far off in the distance. And we're dressed in our uniforms, and we're waiting hours and hours. And I can hear the crowd, Chris, go nuts. And I'm just like, wow, we're going to go into that. And so every step that you get closer, the crowd is louder and louder. I mean, because you're getting closer and closer. It's like deafening. And I must say, by the time I'm walking in, I'm shaking and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, legs, come on, let's go. I remember the teammates were saying, oh, you can do it, you can do it, you know. And I was thinking, I don't know, one leg in front of the other. I can do this. How am I going to skate? Come on, do it. I was so overwhelmed with the awe of it. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, if I feel like this right now, just walking, what am I going to feel like when I'm skating? So again, the decision to kind of really put the blinders on was a good thing for me. I think other people may be able to take it in differently, but you know, that was my way of handling.
Yeah. How exciting. And you think of like just this small percentage of people in this world who are actually able to experience what you have experienced, and what a really special memory.
It is very special.
Yeah.
And I do treasure it.
Yeah. And so you kept on going in your career. You continued to compete. You competed and won a U.S. championship, as well as other competitions.
Yes, worlds, I medaled, yay,
Yay.
at the World Championships 2 years out, both the following year from the Olympics, 85 and 86.
And when you think about being there as the first Asian American, the first Chinese American to represent and compete at that high level, represent the United States with other people around the world watching. How do you ever think about, you didn't expect it at that time, but you were an inspiration for so many others, for so many other Asian American young skaters coming up. What is your reflection on that?
That one always stumps me. Well, I can at least tell you how I felt. You're right, Chris. I was not aware of it at the time. I was just an athlete doing her best at a competition. It was made more known to me after the Olympics, and I took a trip to both Taiwan and mainland China, and I was stunned at the reception, at their knowledge and their just how much they embraced me. I was shocked and moved. I couldn't believe it. I just thought, wow. I looked behind like, who's this for? And and I also remember visiting, of course, these are in skating rinks. So many Asians were so talented, and they didn't have really that many facilities, and they didn't have probably the same conditions that I was used to, but I saw so much talent, Chris. I really did. And I thought, wow, world, watch out. It's coming.
Yeah. So you're saying that you saw a change?
No, I saw talent,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm. And as you're going, I mean, with your career, and you know, it's you retired, stopped competing at what age?
19.
19.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a lifetime for
Yeah,
for other people. how was it tough to stop? Was it hard?
Um, I remember it is. I mean, anytime it's the end of something, it's something one you've known, you love, and for it to come to a close is always a bit sad. But isn't that the way with life? I mean, kind of we have these graduate from elementary, you graduate from junior high. So there's all of those types of things. Of course, this is a different scale, but yes, it was a difficult decision for sure.
And so you went on to study at UCLA. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
I went to USC, so
Oh,
Rob, we can still chat. That's okay. And I think you probably took a break from the skating life. Is that?
I did. I did something kind of unconventional. Well, I don't know. I mean, the times were so different then. But at the time, people didn't really make, like, we didn't have these kinds of endorsements, at least not for figure skating, until you turn professional. So the day you turn professional, you go into these things, shows, and that's where you made your income. So I did a bit of both because I really wanted to do a bit of what everyone else was doing. So I went to UCLA and I loved it. And I continued to do shows in some professional competitions and ice shows. And what was really funny, Chris, is I did a competition and it was called Legends. I was, I think, in my early 20s. I was already
You
considered a
were
legend.
a
It was
legend.
pretty funny.
That's exciting. And then you progressed to coaching. Like, how did you make that transition?
It was kind of quite by accident. At the time, I thinking, I graduated as an English major, and I was thinking of going into perhaps law, contractual law, because my parents owned some real estate, and I was thinking that would probably be helpful. And then I was asked into these pro competitions, and I thought, oh, okay, let me do that. And then as I did that, there was the opportunity to coach also as well. And I just kind of did what I felt like doing. It wasn't a lot of thought, and I fell into it. I mean, that passion's just, it's really easy for it to transfer for me to put all that kind of energy, because who wouldn't want to give back, right? And to help the young generation do things maybe with, of course I had by that time a few thoughts on what I could have done better, and giving that knowledge to the next generation.
Absolutely. And when we go back and talk about you inspiring a generation of young Asian figure skaters, I think there was an article out there saying that there's a large percentage of Asian Americans who make up the U.S. figure skating team.
I know, I'm so proud.
Yeah. And did you ever speak to people like Michelle Kwan, Ms. Yamaguchi, to see, like, did they tell you, hey, we used to watch you? And
I've been told that, and it's still shocking because I'm in such great admiration of what they have accomplished. I mean, wow. I feel honored and thrilled to have gotten there first. But wow, I'm so impressed at the accomplishments, and I feel that they're such great ambassadors of the sport. So well spoken, have good hearts, and both of the young ladies that you mentioned, both Michelle Kwan, who's done this for so many years and as a champion, and is so well spoken, and Chris Yamaguchi, who also won the Olympics. And I have a funny little story on her. I remember, first of all, she has always been as she is now. So her persona is, she's very nice, she's very personable, very encouraging. She's always been that way, ever since she was little. I remember seeing her very young, and she came up to me, she was so cute, and she asked for my autograph. And I remember taking it and looking at her and saying, honey, someday I will ask you for your autograph, which of course I did. And I knew it at the time because she was just so amazing. So to be, to hear her speak at the Hall of Fame, her words of what she thought of my influence, I was really impressed because, again, such a fan of them, So.
Absolutely. But what a wonderful feeling to be
Yes,
able to inspire that.
Yes.
Maybe you
It
can
doesn't
take
feel
credit
real.
for some of their wins.
No. That's them. That's
Yeah,
them.
that's right.
But tickled pink for sure.
Wonderful. When we talk about Asian Americans in figure skating, but also Asian Americans in sports now in the United States, things have changed so much. You watch TV now, so it's still a relatively small percentage, but how over the years, what do you think about so many more Asian Americans, Chinese Americans participating in sports across the spectrum?
Well, funny enough, Chris, again, as I mentioned before, when I was growing up, I didn't see many Asian faces. Nowadays, at least, I'm a coach in Southern California. When you pop into any rink in Southern California, there are lots of young, mega talented little Asian faces that are going to be bright stars. I think we've had many this past year with Nathan Chen winning the Olympic medal and Vincent So, who didn't get to participate, but was a very close competitor and, except for the COVID thing. And we have the ladies, Alyssa Liu, who is now the world's bronze medalist, and Karen Chen. And there was, the list actually goes on. There was quite a big percentage of the US figure skating team that is Asian. And that's wonderful to see.
Absolutely. And I guess, is there anything else that you think about? You're inducted into the Hall of Fame now. And that is in the history of figure skaters, you are on the top. How does that make you feel?
I still have to pinch myself just to it's hard for me to believe, but I'm very honored and humbled by that acknowledgement and so proud to see all these Asian faces doing so well in my sport. I am truly, truly proud of them.
Wonderful. What I'd like to do is sort of open it up to questions. Muting, if you could turn on your volume, and if you could see if anybody would like to, if you're interested, please raise your hand, and Muting can unmute you.
As of this time, we don't have hands up, but we do have a couple of comments. We have comments from Terry Wu and from Susan Wang, who, for example, Susan speaks about how she remembers watching you, Tiffany, skating on TV in the 1980s and how she thought that you look like her and that you have a Chinese last name, that it was so inspiring.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the.
So Elizabeth is helping us to host the Q&A section. So he is raising the chat up to see if you have.
Yeah, I didn't hear that question. Sorry.
Oh, let me see. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. There were two comments from Terry Wu and from Susan Wang, who, to be frank, they really wanted to speak about how they have felt inspired by you, Tiffany. I think Susan, for example, can remember watching you skating on TV in the 1980s and was really inspired by how she could relate to you.
Oh, thank you. Wait, I'm so sorry. I can't really read the text because I have one contact lens in
Okay.
and one contact lens
And
out.
so it's saying that I remember watching Tiffany skating on TV in the 80s and thought she looks like me and has a Chinese last name. It was so inspiring.
I love stories like
Yeah.
that. Thank you. Thank you. I think, did she say that she used to skate?
Yeah. No, I don't think she used to skate, but like you obviously inspire people with your skating and excellence. How do you I guess how do you inspire as a coach? You know, how do you get people to do better or get the best out of them and inspire them?
Well, it depends on the level because there's a lot of different ways to motivate. Um, and you have to take in consideration what the goal is. But for me as a coach, if I'm talking about young kids, really trying to set a goal and set steps to achieving that goal. And then making sure that we're setting a good work ethic so that that goal can be met. Then, whether that goal is actually met or not, for me, is less important than just setting the plan and making a good effort on both a weekly, daily manner. That's really the most important thing because goals can always change. We might find, I mean, as we know from success, it's not straight up, it's not a straight line. It kind of wiggles. So you kind of find your way through these struggles. And sometimes you have to pause a little here, but you find your way back.
Okay, if you have any questions, oh, hi Tiffany, your spelling of your last name is Chin. Is your father from Toisan? Because my mom's last name is spelled the same way from that village in China, from Jiufeng.
Awesome. You know, I heard my father's actually born in the US and his family is from Hong Kong. So I heard a funny little story about the spellings of the last names, how it's really it depends what kind of an immigration officer you get, because the different dialects will pronounce it differently. And they would just kind of like, oh, okay, that's Chin, C-H-I-N. So it would be whether it was C-H-I-N, C-H-E-N, C-H-A-N. It really kind of depended on how that particular immigration officer interpreted what they were saying. That's just what I heard.
Yeah, okay. Ben Lau from Chicago is asking, after taking the role of coach, do you think you're a Tiger coach?
Well, kind of hard to say because I teach both. I just came out of coaching a young woman, Kaylani Crane, love her, towards her second Olympics. And I also teach like little kids as young as sometimes 5. So I don't know about that. I definitely teach with the goal in mind to bring out their personal best and to help them find their Olympic moment, whether it's their first axel or whether their first international or whatever that goal may be.
Because it's not like a hockey where you got to run, skate lines back and forth to get stronger and
No.
get more,
No.
Lung capacity or anything like that. It's much more of it's physical, but also there's a finer artistic.
There's definitely an artistic sense, a performing arts part of it, which was what drew me, but it's definitely a sport, so they have to train. But I do believe that it really depends on the goal.
Okay. How many students do you have so far, or how many students have you had? I think you mentioned that you're reducing.
I could not guess on the number. I teach in a facility that has a big camp every summer, and that I would come across like so many people just in a summer. So I've been teaching for close to 30 years, so it's quite hundreds and I don't know, maybe thousands. I couldn't even guesstimate on that. I also now work in a different location too. So I work in 2 different locations. So I have some of my own students and then I help someone with his students. So yeah,
Yeah.
it varies. It varies.
Ben Shu asks, Tiffany, could you please share your mother's immigrant story and how she had to be strong to make it through the war and as a new immigrant in the United States?
Yes. Well, I don't know all the details, of course, but what I can gather, she came here to further her studies in the master's study at SC. She grew up in mainland China, as I mentioned before, and it was during the war. So she had to, travel by herself at the age of 9. She didn't have to, but she decided that she was going to go on a train, and I think it was to meet up with an uncle or something, and just ran. I mean, in those kind of warring situations, there's an opportunity and you kind of take it. And my mom was definitely that person. So yeah, she traveled on her own and met up with her relatives at that other destination. But that's a very scary thing for a little 9-year-old. I mean, I could never do that. That way out does any of my accomplishments. I wouldn't have the guts to do that. So there was that. And then she went to college in Taida, which is a university in Taiwan. So it was very, very competitive. But I remember her telling me that it was a very different life than mine and very difficult. I think as many immigrants have similar stories. I mean, she saw the effects of war, and it's not always pretty, but I'm asking you guys to kind of elaborate. And she wanted to make sure that she gave me a better life. And I feel she accomplished that.
Absolutely. Okay. A question from Ben Lau. How do you compare the students now and then as you were growing up? Of course, you were a student or you were a competitor then. How would you compare the figure skating, I guess, the quality or the dedication? Is there a difference, do you see?
Oh, yes. I think these days it's quite a bit tougher. It's very, very intense. I mean, I thought my life was intense, but it's even more so now. They have to do so much more. They are now even performing so much more. Their triples are very common. Cut triples are something that I did at the Olympics. I did, I think, 3 different types, which the Olympic champion, I think, only did 2. I'm saying that only to show that it was very rare to have people do more than 3. Now, I think a 10-year-old can easily often do 5 or anywhere from 10 to 12. So it's like crazy. They're doing triples. They're doing triple axles. They're doing quads. I mean, it's insane.
Okay. Yeah, just amazing to see all the different things that that people are able to do now. I guess there's always a push to do more and be better and be more spectacular to wow the judges, right? Just a question: Are judges surly? Are they angry? Do they seem angry, or
Oh no! I feel they try to do the best they can. I've actually had the good fortune to have been a what we refer to in the industry as a caller, or and that is the person on the technical panel that determines the element. And so that's one of the people that sits over where the judges are. And I have to say, it's very, very difficult. And you're trying so hard to do your very, very best to make the right call, as well as to do the best for the athletes in front of you. So having participated in that, I can see, wow, it's really tough. Every part of this sport is so demanding. It's not just demanding on the athletes and the coaches and the parents, it's demanding on the judges.
Absolutely. Now you have some ties, Ben Lau asked, you have some ties to Hong Kong. And would you ever think about going to Hong Kong to teach or going internationally to teach? Or you're mainly based here?
Well, of course, I'm based in Los Angeles, and my son, who is now graduating from college, I would consider going and visiting different places. I'd love to go to Hong Kong. Who wouldn't love to go to Hong Kong?
Right. Okay. Well, I think we're, let's see here. We've got one more question from Ben Shu. Could you describe the challenges of coaching at the recent Olympics during COVID? Also, can you elaborate on how difficult it was due to the recent Russian doping scandal and the delayed medal presentation?
Wow, that's a packed
Yeah.
text there. Okay, so you'll have to remind me of the other two. I'll
Okay.
address the first of the three,
All right.
which is already
The challenges
the
of
challenge
coaching
of
at
the recent
COVID
Olympics.
Olympics.
Ben, that's a great question because I've been able to had the good fortune to participate in 3 Olympics. One at my own, where I was an athlete, and 2 as a coach. Again, coaching Kaylani Crane. Love her. She's so awesome. On the first one, it was many, many years after the one I had participated in, and it's very similar to what I remembered. The same ordeal, the same turning on the stomach, preparation, performance, all of that seems similar. But for this last Olympics, it was really, really different. I'll elaborate. Just getting prepared to go to the Olympics was an ordeal. As we can recall, we're talking about December and January. The protocols even for travel were changing constantly. I found out the hard way going in January, going through Estonia, that you had to have your travel documents, not only for the place that you were entering, but also for any country that you transited from. That changed. So I remember getting stuck in the United States. I missed my flight because I didn't have that done. And being paranoid about whether this was going to happen again was something that was really plaguing both myself and my athlete. The vigor COVID testing that we had to undertake from like 2 months prior, then a month prior, and then I think it was 96 hours, and then I think maybe 48 hours, and then 24 hours. And China approved sites in the United States. It was really, really difficult. And some of you could recall, some of the athletes didn't make it. Some of the officials didn't make it. And so the concern of following procedure and making sure that we got there safely was really an ordeal, a taxing one. It even changed at the Olympics. It didn't just stop in the preparation for, but at the Olympics, people were completely covered. We had to wear masks everywhere. We were tested every day. And in the eating area, I don't have my phone to show you, but we were in cubicles. So I definitely felt safe, but it was clear plexiglass cubicles. So in front of me and to the sides. So there was not that person. I was not this close to anyone while I was eating. Gloves, it was very different. But then there was a second.
There was another question about what we addressed earlier about the controversy. What was it like being there to see that Russian or the delay of the medal presentation because of doping?
Yes. Well, yeah, that was quite surprising. And yet not surprising. I don't really kind of want to get too much into that.
It's not surprising. And
it's very surprising, but not surprising.
Ben's other question is, the woman, I don't know, I don't remember her name. She, the Russian rocket. She this extraordinary performance. And one of the points that was made that she didn't have that sort of moral support that you had as you were growing up from your mother, supporting their being there for them. How do you, and maybe you don't have to address that specifically, but
I
do you
might
see?
not be.
Okay.
I mean, that's just it's a completely different country, and it's philosophically, it's different. And I couldn't even really guess as to why they do what they do.
Okay. Okay. Very good. And I think that is, we're running out of time, but Tiffany, I want to thank you so much. I want to
thank you, Chris. It was really enjoyable.
I had a lot of fun, and I wanted to show the people on Zoom that Tiffany has brought in a skate, from
That's an old one.
an old skate from when she was young, and we're going to be able to display this at the museum here in San Diego. And thank you so much for your donation, and thank you so much for taking the time. I think we're going to go ahead and take a
Thank you very much, Tiffany. You had to drive down here with traffic. You are a resilient woman, so we know that. Chris just came out of bronchitis, but we are resilient people to celebrate the Asian Heritage Month. Thank you all for your participation. We look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.